Brothers and sisters of the Warhammer universe, welcome back to Tortuga's Grim Rosaline. My name is Jeff, and today we're going to be painting a Grimdark Chaos Lord. And you might be asking yourself, why am I watching and listening to this bald, early 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, musclehead tell me about how to paint my miniatures? And that's a good question. You see, I've been doing this for just under a year. My daughter and I started working on these together, and we had an idea of trying to figure out our way of doing a horror, gothic-esque version of Grimdark that we could really sink our teeth into. And after her passing, I have continued this journey from her and my ideas together. And each miniature that I paint, it gets closer and closer to what we were hoping for. So I hope you join me on these journeys as we try to fully develop our own version of the Grimdark. And without further ado, let's do this. So here's a list of all the paints that we'll be using on this build. So we're going to start things off with Vallejo's Black Primer, Black Model Air, and Red RL M23 Model Air. After everything has been primed, we're going to switch over to the base paints, and I do a 1.5 thinner flow ratio to 1 drop of air paint, and we'll be doing 2 thin coats of this. We'll be doing the body, the backpack, and the head in the Model Black, and we'll be doing the cape in the red. However, before we do that, we're going to put camouflage plastic putty for airbrush on the fur sections to make sure those don't get painted over red. Whenever I'm airbrushing multiple colors on a single piece, I usually use this putty just to make sure that my paints don't overflow to where they're not supposed to go. Next, we're going to be using Citadel's Evil Sunz Scarlet, Vallejo's Model Color Red, and Thinner Medium. We're going to start off with the Evil Sunz Scarlet, and we're going to use this to do all of the highlighting on the cape. So any of the areas that are pushed up, or if you look how I'm angling it, you can see the light hitting off, is where we're going to put this paint on there, as well as along the edges of the cape. After that, we're going to use the Vallejo Red, and we're going to paint this onto the cape on areas where we want the low lighting to come through. So as you can see, any of the areas of the flaps that are more pointed away from the light, I'm going to paint those in with that darker red. After that, we're going to continue with the Vallejo Red, and we're going to paint the tassels on the backpack. Then we're going to move on to the body, and we're going to paint the handle of the axe in the Vallejo Red, as well as the demon face on the buckle. Next up, we're going to be using Citadel's Blood Angels Red, Vallejo's Model Color White, and Thinner Medium. We are going to start painting the eyes with Vallejo's Model Color White. We're going to carefully paint that in. Once that dries, we're going to switch over to the Citadel Blood Angels Red, and we're going to fill that contrast in. And if you want, you can even go a little over the eyes to give it a kind of a glowing effect. Next, we're going to use Citadel's Retributor Armor with Medium Thinner. And it is that time again that every Chaos Painter out there loves, or dreads. It's trim time. So we're going to start off, and we're going to paint the insignia off of the cape on the upper left shoulder. We're going to start doing all of the trim around the body, and including the insignia off the chain, and all of the trim on the axe, including around the skull. And don't worry if you paint outside or go over it, because we're going to touch it up and make it nice. The key here is get the gold in. And we're going to do 2 layers on this to really make sure that gold looks its best. Next up is Citadel Stormvermin Fur with Thinner. We're going to go ahead and we're going to paint all the fur on the top of the cape, as well as on the figure on that right shoulder leading to where the cape will join. Next, we're going to use Citadel's Leadbelcher and Thinner. We're going to start off with the backpack. We're going to paint that whole top area of the spears and spikes, and then we're going to work our way down to the bottom end of the backpack where the vents come out. Then we are going to move up to the helmet. We're going to paint the front grille as well as any other areas we think should look metallic. And now we're going to make our way to the chest, painting any metallics like the chains, the grenades, the face of the axe, the vent off the chest, couplets where tubes go in or out of, and any rivets that might be on the armor. Next is going to be Vallejo Model Air Mahogany. And we're going to use this to paint 2 thin coats on the holster on his left hip. Next is going to be Citadel's Dark Reaper and Thinner. We're going to be using the Dark Reaper to paint all of the tubing around the body and head, as well as any of the joints in between the plates of armor on the body itself. Next, we're going to use Citadel's Wraithbone and Thinner. We're going to use the Wraithbone to paint the horns on the helmet, the tusks on the demon emblem on the buckle, as well as all of the skulls on the backpack. And remember, using Wraithbone, super thin it out so it comes out nice and smooth and we don't gunk up any of the detail. Next, we're going to use Citadel's Yriel Yellow with a thinner and Feugan Orange. We're going to paint the Eye of Horus on the knee. We're going to start off with Yriel Yellow, and we're going to paint 2 thinned coatings very carefully on the knee. Then we're going to take that Feugan Orange, and we're going to put that into the corners of each side of the eye. And now we're on to the shading. First is going to be Citadel's Druchii Violet. We're going to use this to shade all of the red areas on the Chaos Lord. Always take note while shading capes because they tend to flow out. It makes it very easy for shades to pool in those areas. If you see that happen, re-go through it with your brush and smooth that out. Next is going to be Citadel's Seraphim Sepia. We're going to use this to shade in the Wraithbone wraps around the holster. Up next is Citadel's Nuln Oil. We're going to use the Nuln Oil to shade in all of the metallics on the axe, off of the backpack, and any metallics on the armor itself. And similar to what we did with the cape, anytime you're shading over detailed areas, make sure that pooling does not occur. If it does, take your brush and thin it out so we don't have anything drying and looking splotchy. Next is Citadel's Argax Earthshade. We're going to use the Argax to shade all of the gold on the Chaos Lord. I personally like using it as well on all the black armor. I think it gives a nice gloss and makes the armor look even richer than the base black. We're also going to use the Argax on the horns, the tusks, and the skulls. Now, I'm a big fan of using Argax on these, and the reason being, I like the dark look. I like the fact that these look like they just came out of a fire, that they're burnt up. It just makes it look grim. Now we're going to start our highlights with Vallejo's Model Air Chrome. So we're going to use the chrome for 2 things. First is going to be for highlighting the areas, like if a light was pointed at our model from above, whatever the light is touching is where we're going to want to put that chrome on the metallics, like the top of the vent area, the front of the chains, anything along that line the light's hitting, that's what we want. The second is going to be on all of the weapon blades. So the teeth of the chain axe, the back of the spike area, the tips of the spears and spikes on the backpack. We want those on to help show that it is super sharp. And as we can see, Tig came by to show his approval that he agrees with me 100%. Thanks, Tig. Our next highlight is going to be a combination of Citadel's Retributor armor with Vallejo's Model Air Chrome 1-to-1 with the thinner. So with this mixture of 1-to-1 Retributor armor to chrome, what we're going to do is we're going to take this Chaos Lord, we're going to look at him under the light again. And anywhere that light is hitting, now what we're going to do is we're going to use this to highlight all of the gold. So we're going to look at all of the trim on the armor, and we're going to start to work our way either from down up or up down. Wherever you're seeing the light hit is where you're going to start to put those highlights on there. You can see that we're going to be painting around the upper parts of the knee plates, working around the shoulder plates on the trim there, onto the helmet, onto the backpack areas, even onto the axe. With all the highlighting done, our Chaos Lord is looking really great, but we're going to bring him to a whole new level because up next is the Grimdark. And nothing says Grimdark more to me than the Villainy ink enamels. We're going to use Goon's Grime and Sector Rust. We're going to start off with the Sector Rust, and we're going to apply this all over the black armor and metallic areas on the Chaos Lord. So I like to apply this on the corner areas of armor as well as anywhere the gold meets the black of the armor to give it a nice weathered look, as well as throughout all of the metallic areas except for anywhere that I might have highlighted as a sharp edge. Now we're going to add the Goon's Grime, and we're going to be putting this on the skulls, the horns, and the tusks. Basically, this is going to look awesome on any skull or bone area that you're going to put this on. I'm also going to put this on the cape, the handle of the axe, and the fur around the shoulders. This is going to make everything darker. It's going to make everything look dirty and grimy, and we can layer this on just like the Sector Rust. You can put as many layers on as you want till you get how you want it to look. And don't worry if you were a bit overzealous and maybe you put too much on and darkened an area way too much than what you want. Great thing with enamels is we can do touch-ups whenever we want to for up to 2 days. And I'm going to show you how to do this later on in this video. Next, we're going to revisit the Citadel Stormvermin Fur. So we are going to use this to highlight the fur on the shoulders after darkening it up with the Goon's Grime. As you can see, instead of just painting or shading directly over, what I'm doing is I'm taking certain tufts and I'm highlighting it with the Vermin Gray. So now that the enamels have sat for about 20 minutes on our Chaos Lord, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a Q-tip and I'm going to have mineral spirits on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look over the miniature and I'm going to be looking for areas that are too dark or maybe that I want highlighted more. And I'm going to start lightly rubbing those areas with this Q-tip. And what this is going to do is this is going to start removing layers of the enamels and bringing out that highlight again. Up next is one of my personal favorites, Citadel's Blood for the Blood God. So I like to have my miniatures look like they just came out of a horrific battle. Like they literally just hacked and slashed their way through 50 to 100 Space Marines. So I'm going to generously apply the Blood for Blood God to the axe, and I'm going to then spread that up the handle up to the fist. I'll add some more when I need to, and then continue to spread up the forearm, elbow, and all the way up to the shoulder pad to make it look like spattered. Then I am also going to generously add the Blood for Blood God to all of the skulls, both on the base and to the backpack, and then spread it around to the look that I want it to have. Because let's be honest, nothing says Grimdark like a whole lot of blood. And finally, we're going to add some dirty down gore. I always like to make the gore dripping down from the weapon to the base, or in this case, a pile of skulls. And there we have it. A grimdark Black Legion Chaos Lord who looks like he just came straight from a horror movie's fever dream. I hope that you all enjoyed this and that I maybe showed you something new. And remember, like I always say, Grim for the Grim Rosaline.